My sister stood up at my daughter's graduation party, tapped her champagne glass with a fork, and announced to 60 relatives that she'd be paying for my daughter's entire college tuition since her mother clearly can't afford anything real. My daughter's face went red. Mine didn't move at all, because I already knew something my sister didn't. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, hit the like button now. If you've ever stayed silent while someone underestimated you, comment here below. And subscribe to Story Retribution because today's ending proves that karma always arrives, just not when people expect it. My name doesn't matter for this story. What matters is that 3 years ago, after my divorce, I had $11 in my checking account and a 16-year-old daughter, Maya, who deserved better than the life I could offer her at the time. I started a small skincare business out of our kitchen. Nothing glamorous at first, just a formula I developed for my own sensitive skin that friends kept asking to buy after seeing how it cleared up my breakouts. I built it in the evenings after my day job, packaging orders at midnight, while Maya did homework at the same table, teaching myself how to run ads I couldn't afford to get wrong, refunding customers out of my own pocket the few times I did. My sister, Christine, meanwhile, had married well, lived in a house with a circular driveway, and never once asked how the business was going, only ever how I was holding up, in a tone that made it clear she already assumed the answer was badly. Christine had always measured love in dollar signs. Growing up, she was the one our parents bragged about at every dinner. The corporate job, the husband with the boat, the vacations posted in careful, curated photos with captions about gratitude. I was the one whose struggles, a label she'd assigned me the moment my marriage ended and never once reconsidered, no matter what I actually built in the years after. Every phone call came with a version of the same question, dressed up differently each time. Are you managing okay financially? As if struggling was the only story she was willing to let me have. By Maya's junior year, my business had grown past anything I expected when I started it at that kitchen table. I hired my first employee, then my third, then moved production out of the house entirely into a small warehouse space 20 minutes away. I didn't post about any of it online. I didn't need Christine's approval to know it was real, and I'd learned by then that sharing good news with her only ever seemed to come back to me sideways, wrapped in some comment about how surprising it was. I quietly worked with a financial advisor named Mr. Okafor to set aside a dedicated college fund for Maya, contributing to it every single month without fail. And by the spring of her senior year, between the fund and a merit scholarship she'd earned entirely on her own through a portfolio of academic work, her full 4 years of tuition were already covered. Signed, sealed, and sitting in a folder in my desk drawer months before graduation. I hadn't told Christine any of this, not out of secrecy for its own sake. I simply stopped explaining myself years ago to people who'd already decided who I was and weren't interested in updating the story. The graduation party was at our parents' house, the way it always was for every milestone in our family. The same backyard, the same folding tables draped in plastic cloths, the same aunts arguing gently over whose potato salad recipe was better. 40, maybe 60 relatives, a cake with Maya's name on it in blue icing, balloons in her school colors tied to every chair. Christine arrived fashionably late in a dress that cost more than my monthly mortgage and made a beeline for the dessert table, loudly announcing to my aunt that she had a surprise for later, glancing my way just long enough for me to notice. I should have known. Halfway through the party, after the toasts to Maya's achievements and a slideshow my mother had put together of baby photos, Christine stood up, tapped her champagne glass with a fork, and asked for everyone's attention. The backyard quieted, plates paused halfway to mouths, phones lifted to record what everyone assumed would be a sweet moment. I just want to say something, she began, smiling warmly at Maya like she'd rehearsed the expression in a mirror. Watching you grow up has meant so much to me, and I know college is expensive, and I know your mom has had a hard few years. She turned toward me, still smiling, her voice pitched just loud enough to carry to the back fence. So I've decided I'm paying for Maya's full tuition, all 4 years, since her mother clearly can't afford anything real. A few relatives gasped. Some laughed nervously, unsure if it was a joke. My mother's hand went to her mouth. Maya looked at me, mortified, waiting for me to say something, anything. I stayed calm. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. "That's incredibly generous, Christine," I said. "But Maya's tuition is already fully paid, has been since March." The room went quiet in that particular way rooms go quiet right before something shifts. Christine's smile faltered. "That's not possible," she said. "You've been struggling for years." "I was struggling 3 years ago," I said. "I run a company now, 14 employees. I set aside Maya's tuition fund a year and a half ago, and she earned a merit scholarship on top of it in the fall. Her tuition has been paid in full since the spring, along with room and board for her first year." "Since when do you run a company?" my uncle asked, genuinely confused. "Since about 2 years ago," I said. "I just don't talk about my life in front of people who've already decided it's a disaster." Christine's face tightened. "This is embarrassing," she said, glancing around at the relatives now watching her instead of me. "You could have just told me instead of letting me make a fool of myself." "I didn't ask you to stand up in front of 60 people and announce that I can't afford anything real," I said. "You did that on your own, in front of my daughter, at her own graduation party." My mother spoke up, quietly at first. "Christine, did you actually check with her before saying that? Or did you just assume?" Christine didn't answer right away. My cousin Priya, who had been sitting near the dessert table the whole time, quiet and watchful the way she always was at family events, pulled out her phone without saying much. "Actually," she said, "I think everyone should see something." She turned the screen toward the table nearest her, then walked it around so a few more relatives could read it themselves. It was a text thread from 2 weeks earlier, one Christine had sent to her, not knowing Priya and I still talked regularly, still trusted each other with things we didn't say out loud to the rest of the family. "I'm going to offer to pay for Maya's tuition at the party," Christine had written. "It'll be the perfect way to remind everyone how far behind her mom actually is. She'll have to say yes in front of everyone or look ungrateful, and either way she looks bad." The room fell into a different kind of silence than before, the kind that isn't waiting for a joke to land. "Wait, what?" my aunt said, leaning over to read the screen herself, adjusting her glasses like she needed to check the words twice. "You planned this? As some kind of public statement?" Christine's face went pale. "That message isn't— That's not what it looks like," she stammered. "It looks exactly like what it is," Priya said. "You didn't want to help Maya. You wanted an audience." Christine looked around the room, searching for someone, anyone, to back her up. Our uncle looked away. Our mother didn't say a word in her defense. For the first time in years, I watched my sister realize that the family she'd spent decades performing generosity for wasn't going to clap for her this time. "I didn't mean it like that," Christine finally said, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. "You meant exactly what you wrote," I said. "I just don't think you expected anyone to have proof." I didn't gloat. I didn't ask her to apologize in front of everyone. I walked over to Maya, who was still holding her cake plate, stunned, and put my arm around her. "You don't owe anyone an explanation for how our life looks from the outside," I told her. "Not now, not ever." Maya hugged me, right there in front of the whole family, and for the first time all evening, the tears that fell were the good kind. Christine left the party early. She texted me a few days later. 3 lines, careful, clearly rehearsed. "I'm sorry for how that came across. I didn't think it through." I read it twice. I didn't respond right away. Some apologies deserve time before you decide whether they're real, or just damage control once the room stops applauding. What I know is this: I spent 3 years building something quietly, without needing my sister's permission to call it success. She spent that same time waiting for a moment to remind me I was behind. In the end, the only thing she proved in front of 60 relatives was exactly who she'd always been, and exactly who I'd already stopped needing to convince. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button right now. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my situation? If you enjoy stories about family betrayal, emotional drama, shocking revenge, and the justice that always finds its way back. Subscribe to Story Retribution and turn on the bell so you never miss the next story. Tomorrow's story might be even more unbelievable. See you then.